and we made millions of dollars, and we took people that were living like, 20, 30, $40,000 a year. And we created people that had two, three, $400,000 incomes over the course of a couple of years by implementing certain systems and strategies and disciplines, and then teaching the skills necessary so that they could do it. And because I've been through it, I'm not speaking as a guru with theory. I'm speaking as somebody who is in the trenches suffering alongside of you guys. So I know what it's like to be in your shoes.
Welcome to the LandLife Podcast with your host, PJ Riley.
Hey guys, welcome to the LandLife Podcast. My name is PJ Riley. Guys, like I always say, if you're getting value from this podcast, if you're learning a ton of stuff, like, subscribe, and don't forget, when our guest gives you their contact information, if what they've said resonates with you, if you want to follow that, if you want to maybe learn some more, contact them. They're on a podcast for a reason. They want to be contacted. They want to help you reach all the goals and get you where you want to be. So today's guest, and I got to read out some of the things. He's got a pretty large bio here.
I thought you were going to say ego, PJ, because
he's got a mega ego, and we're gonna help that out by saying he's owned and operated 9 businesses, from selling kitchen knives door to door, causing over $2 million in kitchen knife sales. I sat through a kitchen knife meeting and I did not make $2 million. This guy's a baller.
In sales, not profit.
We'll just say you netted all this. We don't need it. Owning multiple cell phone stores, flipped homes at a 7-figure real estate team. This guy's killing it, man. So Vikram Deol, how are you?
I'm good, man. I'm good. How are you?
Awesome.
I'm
Now, what's that?
I said I'm super pumped. We had a bunch of talking before. I was like, man, we should have recorded that.
Yeah, we should have, definitely. Next time we'll do that.
Could be.
Next time we're gonna do this again in a year, and we'll meet up first.
Oh, dude, that'd be great. You might have to come to South America.
Where were you at? What part of are you in the country?
I'm in Miami, but I'm about to go nomad.
Okay.
So yeah, then I might end up in Colombia for 6 months or something next year.
And why? What's leading to all that?
I just always wanted to have a digital business, and I finally have it, and so I can bounce around and do whatever I want for the most part. And if I need to come home or come back, it's a plane right away. So
that's awesome.
Yeah, just taking advantage of this opportunity where I don't have a brick and mortar or a tie down, as I would call it, to one specific area.
All right. So before we get to your current business, what you're doing now,
yeah,
let's start. Let's go back. What got us to the point we're at right now? Tell us your story.
I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My grandparents were farmers. My uncles and everybody I knew was entrepreneurial. My dad was a doctor, but he owned his own practice. And I remember it was like 5-year-old little monkey when Sandy, the nurse, right, when she needed to prick my finger, I would say, if you bring that needle near me, I'm going to fire you. My dad's the boss. And I just always had that personality, I guess, of being a leader, or what I thought was a leader. And I liked money. My dad would come home. My little brother would ask him when we're going to go play basketball. I'd ask him, how much money did we make today? And he's like, I made $10. I'm like, that's nothing. Right. So even as a 4 or 5-year-old on my dad's leg walking through the kitchen, I knew that things cost more than $10. Right. I knew, I was like, somehow in my little monkey brain as a child, I knew that a Happy Meal was $3. So I was like, if we get 3 Happy Meals and my mom gets something, my dad gets something. This was when we ate McDonald's back before we knew what they put in there. I did the math, and I was like, somehow I could add up the math, right? Being Indian, our games were our games at night weren't like, let's go do stuff. Our games at night were like, let's practice your multiplication tables, and 5 plus 5 is this. So I was able to add up things, and I always liked entrepreneurship. I always liked the idea of being the boss, right? And maybe it's because I was a small, scrawny, nerdy kid that, never felt good enough to be around other kids. Like, I never felt like I was the strong kid. I never felt like I was a smart kid. I never felt like I was the athlete. So I just picked the lane, and that was kind of entrepreneurship. So I think, my my lack of, they say that the funniest kids are the people with the best personalities, or the ugly kids that grow up to be, attractive or athletic or whatever. Like they had to develop a personality because they had a underdog mentality. So in order for them to feel good about themselves, it's not that other people don't like you, it's just for you to feel good about yourself, you develop a personality of, of being nice.
Yeah.
Or
Shocking,
being,
right? You
yeah,
learn to be
like,
nice.
I mean, I wouldn't say people would call me nice at this point in my life. I'd say people call me direct. They say I got a big heart, but I don't know that a lot of people say Vikram's the nicest person in the world, and I'm okay with that. Like I'm pretty direct, and I think people need directness.
Yeah, I think too, when you're in that position growing up, you have to figure out new communication skills,
Yeah.
right?
Oh
You
yeah.
have to learn how to talk to people that
Yeah.
maybe you weren't able to talk to before. Like, as a kid, we moved around the world all the time. We moved into
Oh
different
yeah.
countries all over the
Oh well.
place.
Oh
Yeah.
nice.
So so when you move to a different country all the time,
Yeah.
these people, I'm pre-internet too. I'm talking pre-internet. We couldn't Google what our neighborhood was going to look like, right?
Right. There was
So
no
you just moved.
AOL, any of that crap.
Yeah, you just landed in this place with brand new people. Maybe they didn't speak English,
Right.
you didn't know. So you
Yeah.
had to figure out different skills. So I'm sure that's kind of what you did too. You had to
Yeah.
develop these skills that were like, that honestly they weren't like the normal, I'm really good at sports. Let's say I'm the best football player. Everyone's going to gravitate to me,
Right.
right? But if I'm
Nobody
not the
gravitated
best
towards
football
me.
player, I have to figure out a way to gravitate to them. That
Right.
relates to sales, that relates to business as well. So
Yep.
where did that take you from that point on?
So yeah, so I mean, my first, I was all like I said, I was always doing things to earn money. So I was clean the cars, I'd clean the house. My mom had a bunch of sisters, and they'd come over, and I'd wash their cars and make $20 or $10 and
Yeah.
detail them. And I like cars, so it was fun, right? I got to back the car out of the driveway and drive it down the street as like a little kid, like sitting up. So I was, like this little monkey. I call myself a little monkey. And I was always trying to figure out ways to earn money, right? Like that was my thing.
Mhm.
And in fourth grade, I remember asking my parents for a Sega Genesis. For all of those that don't know what a Sega Genesis, well, screw you. Um, but I
Damn
asked my
kids.
parents, yeah, damn millennials, Z's, Q's, F's. I don't even know what there's no alphabet letters left for me. So I'm just stuck. I'm just stuck being a whatever I am. But I asked for a Sega Genesis, and they're like, no, you can't have one. And I'm like, but I want one. And they're like, no, we're not going to buy it for you. And I'm like, that's so messed up, right? Like all the other kids got Sega Genesis, and you guys are supposed to be like well off, and we don't have one. And
Yeah.
so the jogathon in fourth grade was coming up, and we just moved to a new school. And I saw that there was a Sega Genesis. If you raise something like $5,000 or $6,000 in the jogathon, you got a Sega Genesis. So I was like, okay, that's my goal. So like I took the thing, a catalog, and I stuck it on my wall, and I went to every single person's house, and I was just convincing. And I was like, hey, will you sponsor me for the jogathon? And they're like, oh, we already sponsored 3 kids. I'm like, but I have a goal. Like, what? I'm like, I didn't bring my parents. Like, I brought my little bike. I came by myself with my nerdy little glasses. Like, I want a Sega Genesis, and I have a goal. And that sharing that you wanted to do something
Yes.
was like, oh my God. And they knew that I was going to do it, because like I was convinced that I was going to win. And then our neighbor, like my parents, one of their best friends, their son had set the previous record prior. He sold like, let's 4,000, right? So I was like, well, I want to beat him. And I didn't sell him for a Sega Genesis, right? Like this is where, being an entrepreneur and thinking differently, I was like, well, I want to raise so much money for our school that we can get all the computers and the books and bunch of bull crap, right?
Yeah.
And it wasn't a lie, but I wanted the Sega Genesis. I didn't care. I didn't know what they're going to do with the money. They probably went out, had a party, and, got all drunk with it, right? Like, who cares? And I went out and I collected. And then the other thing is that I had to follow up, because when you do the jogathons, right? For those of you who know what a jogathon is, you go and you run the laps at the track. Well, somebody sponsored me, $10 a lap. Somebody sponsored me a quarter a lap. Somebody sponsored me, X amount of Z's for a lap. So I then had to go home and, okay, I added up all the stuff. I'm like, okay, these guys, I got collected in hand $1,000, right? But now I have to go figure out how to collect the other $4,000 or $5,000. And I needed to know how many laps I had to run on the track in
Yeah.
order to hit my goal.
It's time to
So
start
like
working out.
yeah, right, dude. I was so scrawny, but I had to reverse engineer my goal at a young age, right? So that was the first time I didn't really think about that until just now. That was the first time I actually reverse engineered, like, okay, these, I had to add up all the different columns, right? So let's say it was $100 a lap, right? So I'm like, okay, if I need to earn, it's probably like $800 a lap now that I think about it, but whatever it was. And I had to run like 6 laps around the track, which was like a mile and a half or 2 miles. And I'm like, dude, I'm a skinny, scrawny little kid. Like
Yeah.
2 miles was like, yeah, I may as well have ran to Paris. But I knew what I needed to do. And so I was able to accomplish it, and I, crushed it. And then my older brother got a Sega Genesis.
Your older brother got a Sega Genesis.
Well, yeah, because he was bigger than me. So he got a Sega Genesis, and I got to watch him play my hard work. It was quite enjoyable.
That's brutal. But that's super interesting though, because you know, working your way backwards into a goal, like you knew you had X amount of laps, right? And you
Yeah.
had this amount of dollars per lap.
Yeah.
Really, anybody can do that nowadays, with any business. You have,
Yeah.
we need to buy this house. We need to hit this goal for our business. You just got to work
Right.
backwards, right?
You, like in business, so in real estate, I'll just use that as an example because that's what I do now is I teach real estate agents how to not be real estate agents and how to think like businesses. They don't want to track their numbers, right? And the reason why they don't want to track their numbers is because they're not Kobe Bryant. They're not good. So it's like I made 100 calls, I talked to 20 people, I didn't book a single appointment. You do that enough days, like you don't want to see that zero anymore because it's painful. But if you know where your breakdowns in your business are like it's easy. Like I know that if I do 3 appointments every day, PJ, I'm going to sign up a new client. I'm going to have somebody tell me no, and I'm going to have somebody put in my bucket for later. Right? Like that's a good day. Like that's not a bad day for me. Like 33% close rate, 33% go into a future follow-up bucket, 33% just go onto my email drip, and eventually one day they'll be ready. Or they won't, and that's okay. Right? Like they'll either get out of business, they'll hire somebody else, or they'll figure it out over enough time, and all of that's okay. But I know that I have a 33% close ratio on the types of leads that I bring in right now. Right? They're not super warm. They might have gone to a class of mine. It's just math. So my goal every day is like, hey, how do I get my team to be so efficient that I don't have to be involved with them so that I can do 3 appointments a day. I can do my coaching calls. I can do my training, and I can do my mastermind. And then I can prepare for the following couple of weeks so that I always have something ahead of me. And it took me a while to figure out what my closing numbers were because we use multiple different technology systems, and this one wasn't working, and I wasn't tracking over here, and I didn't like the results and the outcome. So I fibbed the numbers a little bit, right? Because I was like, oh, well, I just won't do this day and I won't do that day. And there's not and then there wasn't enough appointments to actually track the numbers, right? So it's like a couple of appointments here, a couple of appointments there. But as you start to become better, you're like, oh, I want to know what my numbers are. Like, I want to know how well I'm doing. PG, I want to know that this is the number 1 listened to show out of all of your podcasts because I am a fucking champion. Absolutely. And champions like to track their numbers. Like I track my sleep, I track my bike rides, right? I always check. I'm like, oh, did I break any PRs this week? Oh, is my average speed going up or down, right? Like champions want to know. Kobe Bryant wants to know. LeBron James wants to know because that's how we get paid. And I love money and money loves me. And I don't have a love of money, but I love what I can do with money. And so champions track and then they reverse engineer and they break it down. It's like, okay, now I'm trying to figure out, PJ, like how many outreaches does my team need to do, not me, to get me 3 appointments a day? And where are they getting their best tracking? Like, where are they getting their best results? So like a lot of our meetings are about, okay, now we got the back end, the systems done, the technology is working, the contracts are going out the right way, the payment system's the right way. Now it's like, okay, let's optimize it. Right. So now that the system's working, I'm like, okay, guys, your job isn't just to get the system working. It's how do we optimize the system so that when I'm doing things, it doesn't take 15 minutes with the client on the phone. And then I have to show them how it works. And they're like, oh, that makes a lot of sense. I know we're jumping forward like 92 steps.
No, we're
so
great.
If you want to bring it back though, to like mindset or anything about whatever, but to me, it's like, how do we optimize what we're doing? Because there's multiple layers in a business that break. And the optimization of things, like if I can save 5 minutes a day with each client, that's 15 minutes. If I can find 5 more minutes here and 5 more minutes there and 5 more minutes there and 5 more minutes there, I can do a 45-minute consultation call and I can get to 4 appointments a day instead of 3. And then maybe I do 2, like I get to 1.5 sales a day, which then makes me have 7 sales a week instead of 5 sales a week. And my monthly, like I charge not a lot of money, but like you get an extra 2 clients that give you a couple $1,000 a month every month for 12 months. And that's every week. That compounds to a couple of $100,000 just by saving 5 minutes here, 5 minutes there, 5 minutes there. Right. So it's like, okay, now we got the system working. Right. My coach said to us years ago, he says, amateurs automate for consistency. Professionals automate for efficiency. Right. Something like that. Because I want to be the most efficient, because if I'm efficient, then I can buy back more time. And every minute I buy back, right, is something that I will do in production, right? Something that I will do to create more revenue, something that I will create a better experience. And if I create a better experience for my clients, then they're going to stick with me longer and they're going to become raving fans and they're going to refer people, and your system starts to explode. Or I can spend more time loving on them and calling them out like, hey, you said you wanted to do this. Did you do this today? No. What the fuck? Why not? Like, you told me this is what you wanted. So I'm going to give you what you want and I'm going to hammer it down your throat until you do it, because we can't be coddled anymore.
Absolutely. So how are you optimizing? So you have a team, you have a full team. How are you helping to optimize? How are you helping them to optimize their time to get the goals, to reach the level that you want them to reach?
One is you got to bring on the right people, right? So we have some people that are at different levels in life and business, right? And they're at different paychecks. And I'm at a different level at life and business than I was 5 years ago, right? 5 years ago, I had a 7-figure real estate company. We were paying people $100,000, $50,000, $80,000, $70,000, right? We had a huge payroll and we had really, really, really like experienced people. Well, now my whole company's virtual. And so my editing and video team we call them the boys, the Barranquilla boys, because they're in Barranquilla, Colombia. So we call them the Barranquilla boys, boys for short. And so the boys are young, right? So like when I was in Colombia 3 weeks ago and we did a video shoot, they were shocked at the ability that I had to work. They were like, okay, we're going to show up. When I saw their agenda, they're like, okay, we're going to show up. We're going to set up. We're going to go to the hotel. We're going to have some lunch. We're going to do this. I'm like, the fuck is this? No, you're going to show up. You're going to stay at the house with me. You're going to sleep on the couch. Your kids, like your 24, your 22-year-old kids, right? I'm 40, so I call everybody a kid now. Yeah. And we're going to power through 2 full days of video. They're like, okay. And then one of the guys who's worked with me longer, he's like, dude, you have no idea. Like Vikram's a machine once he starts. Right now, there's a program out there called the Human Design. It's if you Google human design, you'll see what your human design is based off of your birth chart. I'm what they call a generator, PJ. So I create a shitload of energy. Okay. Right? There's other people who are different things. I don't know what those are because I'm not one of them. So I don't really care to learn them. But I'm a generator. So I can produce an enormous amount of energy and I can fire people up. So we created. Yeah. Well, you and I got I like you. You're like, you got a great attitude, man. Like you are a special human being.
Thank you.
And so I created 100 pieces of content in a 24-hour period. And I was like, all right, you guys go figure this out. They're like, this is insane. Right. But as they're learning from me, like what I'm doing, and they're learning about me as a person and like my experiences and my stories and my personality, I'm watching them, how they record. I'm watching them like take notes. Okay, this is episode 1. This is episode 2. This is episode 3. Right. Like they're batching in a certain way the content, because I'm like, I'm not going to always have these guys with me. And so I'm watching them so that I'm mentally putting that into my brain. Okay, how are they doing this? How are they doing that? How are they doing that? So you have to be very conscious of your environment. You have to be very like, you have to have your eyes open. But once we There's a lot of different ways to do it. I'm a talker. I like to show them what I'm doing on Zoom. It takes a lot longer, but I would rather spend what I've realized is with virtual assistants and the way that I lead is that it's better for us to do a 20 or 30-minute Zoom call 5 days a week on the same topic and get it done than it is for me to send like 10 Loom videos.
Yes.
Loom is a great program. It's a screen overlay. It's a recording. It works amazing. I just haven't tapped into it. So like that's an efficiency that I could use. So if I could tap into that better and then have a review period on my calendar to review what they're doing and then send them another Loom and then review and then send them another Loom, I get caught up in my daytime because every free minute I stack with something in there. So like you and I are, for example, I was talking to Ash. We were talking about how our contracts can be more efficient because we just finally got the system up and running. So I was like, hey, now let's optimize for, if I put my name in, how does it put my email in? If she puts her, how do we get that to zap over, right? How do we get that to Zapier, which is an automations program? How do we get that to go to the SAM cart so that I don't have to put their information? And she's like, I don't know. I'm like, figure it out. She's like, I don't know if they can do it. I'm like, just figure it out. She's like, how? I'm like, ask the help desk. Go to Google, right? Test and test and test. I was like, so create another form, create a test form, and then test that with this one so we don't break what we've already created. And she's like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Some people are really good at seeing the problems and finding a solution. Some good people are really good at seeing the solutions and finding a problem.
Yes.
Real estate agents are really good at seeing a solution and fucking it all up. They're like, well, we're going to just but this comes with years of experience, right? I've had cell phone stores that did okay. I had a wellness center. That was my last business, right? Like that lost a ton of money. I wasn't in there long enough to create enough revenue, and then COVID hit. So it didn't lose a ton of money, but the upfront starting costs, right? The $300,000 of upfront starting costs, I'm still paying that off now, right? So even though like I made a ton of money, I invested that all back. And then when we were profitable, right? The months that we had $10,000, $15,000 of profit, I upgraded our technology, right? I bought iPads, I bought more equipment. I, upgraded our TVs, right? Like you upgrade your business, right? And so people don't realize that you need starting costs, you need holding costs, right? You need 6 months of holding costs, you need marketing costs, right? It's like if you're going to flip a house, don't forget about the front and backyard and put everything into the house. And remember, it's going to cost you 30% more than your budget. So if you think it's going to be a $10,000 remodel, it's going to be 16,000. And now your budget's gone for staging, your budget's gone for marketing. If you're doing it on your own or whatever, your budget's gone to do the front yard, your budget's gone to do the backyard. Now you're talking to the realtor. You're like, hey, dude, if I give you a partnership on this deal and I give you an extra 1% commission, will you do my front yard for me so that the house looks good? And, if I take some furniture out of my house, my wife might not notice. Hopefully no kids spill, soda on the couch. And right. Like people are trying to figure out how to do it because they don't know how to budget accordingly. And it's going to take longer for it to start and get profitable than you think. So we always underestimate what we can do in a year, but we overestimate what we can do in a month.
Absolutely. So what I'm hearing you say is that you are prepared. Like everything you've done, systems, automation, all this stuff, you've used experience. And so now you're just basically, you have preparation that leads to everything. So you have, a virtual assistants. Are these guys in Colombia virtual assistants?
I have two in Colombia. So I have, they named themselves. The Barranquilla boys are in Colombia, and then the Vikrams Angels, which are like my right hand and her right hand are in the Philippines.
Okay. And you went out to Colombia, correct?
But I went out to Colombia just to test being a nomad.
Okay. So where were you filming these videos? I thought they were airing in Colombia.
Colombia. Yeah.
So most people with virtual assistants, though, they keep them virtual, right?
Right. No, I want to meet my whole team.
Yeah. You were like, no, I need to actually be there on the ground working with these guys. I think that probably stepped up your level of production by a ton too.
Well, I mean, so it just happened that we met, right? It wasn't a planned thing. It was like, okay, we're going to go to Cartagena for 3 weeks. And then like, oh, we're in Barranquilla. I'm like, okay, that makes bro, I don't know 15 feet out of Miami. Like I live in downtown. I've lived here for a year. I don't know 15 feet away from where I live. So could you please help me out and tell me like what he's like, it's an hour and a half bus ride. I was like, oh, okay. So we could totally record in person. They're like, yeah. And they're like, we have cameras, we have all this gear. And I'm like, really? So they brought like lights and gear and stuff that I had never really paid attention to because it wasn't important to me. But now I was like, they had all these mood lights and everything. I was like, yo, guys, I need a list of lights. I'm buying a new camera, right? I'm like, I don't know how this shit works. So we're going to spend a whole day next week teaching Vikram how to use technology and cameras and set up because, like I was telling you earlier, I'm like, I have my iPad ready. I got this new thing that I can press a button. It goes to the iPad. I can draw. I can do all these things, right? Because the more we use visualization, right? This podcast is great, but the more I could draw you, like if I draw on a screen right now, you're gonna be like, hey guys, you need to go check out the YouTube because Vic's drawing this crazy model. I don't even know what the hell he's doing. And drawing draws people in because we're 85% visual learners, right? That's why the eyeballs are so important. That's why we are so attracted to social shit is because we see it, right? We can feel it. We can get emotional about it, right? And so it wasn't a plan that I was going to meet them. It just worked out because we were close enough to them that I could bring them both in. And then that's what it was. But to me, like your team, whether they're in America or they're in China, well, probably not China, but maybe in China, but wherever they're at, like you should try to meet them if possible, if they're around for a while, or if you're in the vicinity of them, like you should make all efforts to be with your team. And I was with my business partner. I can tell you, like, I do not like working alone. Like I can't wait for the day, PJ, that our business is big enough and we're profitable enough that I can have a small team locally where I get to work with other badasses.
Yeah.
Like people like, I love working from home. I'm like, you are so much less productive.
Yes. Yeah. Well, just think of all the things too. Dog barks, and you got to go over there, right?
Yep.
Someone knocks on your door, you have to deal with that. There's so many distractions at home.
Laundry.
Yes, absolutely. And you just happen to look around your house and you're like, I needed to fix that light bulb 2 weeks ago. I'm here. I can do it.
Yeah.
You're jumping on it right away. So, okay, let's say are you taking new agents on, or are these already experienced agents that you're going to help improve? And and follow up to that, what does it look like for either?
So I don't like new agents. I like new agents. I don't like to work with new agents because they don't have any money saved up.
Okay.
So they don't have money saved up, and that's a big challenge. Like if they had money, I would create a program for them, but they just don't have enough money for it to make sense for me to do it at this point. Now, once this business is up and running, and it's more mature, I'll create a program for newer agents to help them because I do love helping new agents because the real estate model's broken. That's why they call it join a brokerage, because you're going to go broken there, and it's a broken model and the whole system's fucked, right? The whole system's built to get membership dues, get schools filled, and brokerages to collect a small piece of pie from a bunch of people instead of collecting a larger piece from a small amount. They're collecting a small piece from a large pool, right? So it's kind of like the Walmart model. And if you've ever gone to Walmart, it's broken. So I don't necessarily work with new agents as much. I do take on some here and there if they're super committed and they're super committed. But most of them, they can't afford to be in a program like mine because they're broke. Like they got into real estate because they were broke, and somebody told them they'd make a bunch of money, and they watched $1 million listing and they saw some guy with a suit and girl with some Louboutins on go sell like a $6 million house. And they don't show the actual commission that the agent makes. They show the total commissions. They're like $6 million. That's a $300,000 payday. I'm like, well, first off, it's not 300,000. It's divided by 2. Secondly, like the brokerage takes a fee of it. Third, there's marketing costs and there's other things, acquisition of client costs. Like, yes, there's a $300,000 commission divided by 2. That's a ton of money. But the agent might not get 150. The agent might walk away with 100, which is still a lot of money. But how did they get to that client level, well, they started off with leases, and then they started off with $400,000 buyers and sellers, and they moved their way up. Majority of the people to the 2 million, the 1 million, the 2 million, the 3 million, the 4 million, the 5, the 6, the 10, the 20s. They didn't just walk into a $10 million house and start selling that unless their family was there, or there was, it typically, or they worked in real estate as an assistant, got to know the crowd, learned the language, learned how to deal with these people, and then got to that level.
Yeah, and where I'm at in Denver, there's more agents than houses available. I mean, there's a lot more agents than houses available. I know a ton of real estate agents, and one thing, I mean, they're not able to really grow and get experience because they're not selling anything. They're just existing as they have a really cool business card, right? They got a really cool business card. It has them in a suit.
Yep.
It looks really cool. Their LinkedIn profile looks great. However, how do they get to a level to where they can work with you? I mean, how do they build themselves if there's no houses to sell for them?
So here's what I'll say. There's always more people than there are customers, right? There's more lawyers than there are people that want to pay for lawyers. There's more doctors than there are people who want to pay for a doctor, right? There's always competition. So my dad always says, because my little brother just went through med school and he had to do like all these really hard tests and, step 1, step 2, step 3, I don't even know, like whatever they're called, right? But he had to do all these things, all these hoops to get to where he's at. And my dad always said to people, it's so hard. It's so hard. I said, Dad, don't you want it to be hard? Now, because it's his son, he's emotional, because my little brother was struggling, not because he's not smart, because he liked to party, right? Like he's having a good time and he was doing his thing and he was young and he didn't have a lot of structure and discipline to get to his goal. And so he was just screwing around and wasting a bunch of time. So I'm like, Dad, it's not that it's hard. It's just that your kid doesn't have the habits necessary to get to where he wants to go. Like it's not that it's hard. It's just his discipline's off.
Yeah.
Right. And at some point, it's not your responsibility. You have to let that go. But he was saying how hard it is, right? And I said, it's supposed to be hard. He's like, there's so many kids, there's not enough schools. I said, that's a bigger problem, but that's the situation that we're in. That's not going to change. So you have to figure out how to fix the situation so that you're in. Like it is what it is, right? Like you can't get upset about it. And he would bitch about it because he wants to see his kid become a doctor and whatever. There's always going to be more people than seats available.
Yeah.
That's just the nature of the beast. We got 7.5 billion people until the World Health Organization like knocks out 3 billion people with all these fun things that they're doing. We're going to have an overpopulation for the seats that we have infrastructure for. It's not that we don't need more doctors. It's not that we don't need more houses. It's just we can't build them. It's not possible to build as fast as the necessity is. What do you do? Right, PJ? What do you do? Fuck, man. What do I do? Well, you up your game. You up your systems. You up your accountability. You up your skills, right? Everybody says, like my coach says to me, I was like, hey, I think I'm going to sell a rental property. He's like, why? I was like, I want to get out of some of the debt that I have. I want to put some money into a US based assistant, somebody local that can do some of my internet postings, and they talk more American, and that can take some of the pressure off of my plate now that we're at a certain level. And he's like, all right, like that makes a lot of sense. He's like, there's going to be a tax liability. I'm like, I know, hopefully I have enough write-offs that I can cover those and blah, 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 blah. And he's like, all right, cool. But I'm like, I want to invest more into my business because that throws off, $1,000 a month in profit, cash flow. My business, if I build it, can throw off $500,000 in cash flow. Right. And then I can go buy a multifamily instead of buying an individual unit. That's a big pain in the ass sometimes, right? Not a big one, but it's just, I don't live in California. So why do I want to have something there when I'm thinking about moving to Colombia for a year and it's just a 1-unit property, right? Like it just makes sense to cash out and move on. And he goes, what are you going to do with the money? I said, well, I'm going to invest into my business. He's like, cool. So I'm going to pay off some debt. Cool. He's like, what about yourself? I was like, well, I already got you. He's like, yeah, but let's see what programs you can invest in. And I've put 7 figures into self-development since I was 30, 28, 29, 30 years old. I've put 7 figures into this already. Wow. So like when people are like, oh dude, it's so expensive. I was like, I know, tell me about it. Like I got 7 figures into this. Like, let me show you what 7 figures looks like in pictures. Pictures with Bedros Keuilian, pictures with my coach, Sharon Srivatik, pictures with Tony Robbins, in an ice bath with Tony Robbins, pictures with his wife, pictures with Tom Bailu, right? Like pictures with not Dean Graziosi, my buddy Xavier Dean, pictures with, I don't even have all the pictures anymore, right? That's what it looks like to spend a ton of money. Like some people like, I got a Rolex. I'm like, yeah, you got a Rolex. Cool. What do you do with it? You stick it in your safe because you don't want to wear it because you're scared, right? Like where mine is, right? What do you do when you want to grow? You invest in yourself, right? The thing that I hate about formal education, right, which is like the super fucked up education system that 98% of the world goes to, is that it doesn't teach you to think. It teaches you to do what somebody else tells you to do, which is the top 10%. It doesn't teach you to actually, they say, think outside of the box, but everything you do is inside of a box. You learn on a box, you're in a box, you sit at a box, you eat out of a box, you get on a box, right? Maybe a rectangle, but you're always like being told what to do and how to think by somebody who is not very competent. Like most of the teachers out in this world today, God bless their heart, they mean well, they're not very competent because they've never had real jobs. They left high school, they went to college, they worked at the, pizza place or the mini mart or whatever, not the mini mart, probably they worked at like a hostess desk, and then they got their degree and then they got into school. They've never seen the world.
Yes.
So how are you going to teach worldly things when you've never been a worldly person? How are you going to teach business and entrepreneurship and when you've never done that? How do you teach how to be an outside thinker when that hasn't happened? So when people are like, dude, when are you going to stop investing in yourself? I was like, well, I don't know. When I feel like I've learned everything. And the more that the internet's out there, the more I feel stupid. The more I travel into different cultures, the stupider I feel. I'm like, I don't even speak a second language. Like, God, I'm an idiot. Like these people grew up in the ghetto, right? Like in the barrios with no running water, and they speak English, French, and Spanish. I grew up in a fucking Mercedes and I barely speak English. Like, what kind of freaking idiot am I? And my parents sent me to a boarding school for 2 years in India, and I told the teachers in class that I was going to get them green cards, and I slept. I'm like, what kind of idiot am I? Like, I thought that was so cool as a kid, but now that I'm older, I'm like, wow, this is so horrible. How am I going to marry a beautiful Colombian woman if I can't even talk to her? It's so hard. I can't talk to her on translator. Like
every date. Yeah, go ahead and say something. You just put your phone in front of her.
It's so obnoxious, right? So
yeah.
When do you stop learning? When you want to die. That's when you stop learning.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, academics that we see today, in school, high school, colleges, things like that, it's all theory, right? It's all theory. Like you all said, the teacher has never done the job.
Yeah.
Or if they have, it's very, very rare. So
5%, 10% maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. So one thing I like to do is, I go out there and do courses, training, learn from people, but you also have a mentor, right? So
dude, lots.
I always look at mentors, coaches as like, and I use a video game analogy a lot, like a cheat code for life.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like a cheat code. You get to move ahead, like 5 levels ahead. Where you wouldn't have been previously, right? Like, so you would have been stuck learning it yourself every day. Like, where do I go? What do I do? But this mentor is like, oh, no. You go left. And when you were going to go right. Right.
Yep.
How would you recommend someone going and finding a mentor, finding a coach or something in their field?
Start on Google, start on YouTube.
So simple, right?
Look, there's not a lack of resources. There's a lack of resourcefulness.
There you go.
Right. There's no lack of resources, PJ. If you want to learn, right, you can go on Google and you go on YouTube and you can type in, like, I learned so much on YouTube and Google, right? Like, I'm having a problem. I got this system called Ecamm Live and a Stream Deck, right? So I press buttons and different scenes come up, and I thought it was going to be so hard to set up because I tried it in the middle of the night a couple of times and it was really like my brain was fried, and I was like, okay, this is too difficult. Well, finally, I'm lugging this thing all around Colombia, and I'm like, I'm going to set it up. The last week I was there, it took me 3 hours. It was a lot easier once I got the first scene set up. The only reason it took 3 hours is because now I got sounds in there. I got different scenes. Like I got all this stuff in there. And I was like, holy shit, this was super easy. It would have taken me 45 minutes, but I got into it and I started getting on YouTube. And I started going down the rabbit hole and I was like, oh my God, there's this and there's this and there's this and there's this. And like, I don't have to buy these $500 lights. I just have to buy this one switch that is controlled by the light. Boom, like my mind is blown and it'll turn on the light. Like I could press a button for this. I could press a button for that. I can have different
Speeds up
cameras.
everything.
Bro, like it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
Like I have a timer for when our webinars and our special classes start. So I'm like, ding, press a button. And it plays in the background. And then when I'm ready to go to it, I press the other button and it's just like, I'm like, what the frick? This is insane, right? YouTube. Right? My team's like, hey, I was like, hey guys, I want to buy a new camera. And they're like, okay, well, how much you want to spend? I'm like, I don't know. It doesn't matter. Like, let's see what's out there and what's available and the size of it. And then I'll decide whether I want to spend that much money on it. Like, let's see. And they're like, so they sent me a camera. And so yesterday on the way home from the gym, I got on YouTube University and I listened to like 3 things at speed 1.5 to 1.75, depending on how fast they talked. And I was listening, and like one of the features of the camera that they send me is that they don't record very well in 4K. And I was like, well, I think I want 4K because why not have 4K, right? Like, why not have the best quality? Because in the camera, right, 1080p is amazing, but I have this little GoPro that shoots at 4K and it's so sick. And I'm like, why wouldn't I want to have 4K capabilities in the camera that I'm going to be doing 85 to 95% of the work on? Because that makes sense. Because I can bring somebody in, I can teach them how to use it, and I don't have to pay a videographer thousands of dollars a month. I could pay some kid $100 off the street. I say, press this button, tap it into my computer. I can see what I'm looking at. I'm like, okay, I like that. Okay, let's change this. Let's change that. And I don't need to bring in a video person because I'll have all the equipment myself. But I was listening to this YouTube University and I was like, no, I don't think I like that. Like, I think I want to have more capacity with 4K. So they gave me some information and then I ran with it and I decided on what I'm going to do with it. And I'm like, all right, guys, find me a 4K camera. They're like, you don't need 4K. I'm like, I don't need it today. But when I do live events and I want to stream it, or if I want to use that raw footage and I want 4K and I don't want it to be super narrow and have to be super in my face because then the people behind me, like, that's going to be weird. Yeah. They're like, wow. And I'm like, I don't want to think, I'm trying to think 10 steps ahead of where I'm at today. Right. So I'm not trying to think about because if I spend $700 on this camera, that's great. But if I spend $1,200 on a camera that does everything I want, then I don't have to waste $700 and I learn one system instead of having to learn a second camera in a year and a half when I'm ready for it.
Yeah. And I think it's super interesting what you said too. You went on YouTube University on the way back from the gym, right? Yeah, you jumped on YouTube on the way back from the gym. No dead space, no dead time, right?
A lot of people would net time. Net time. Net time. We call it net time.
Net time. I like that. So you're learning while you're driving, right? Because I mean, a lot of people turn on the music, they're just hanging out, no big deal. They're driving home from the gym, right? They'll start working when they get home.
I don't have a car, bro, so I have to walk home from the gym. I got rid of my car a year ago.
How far is the gym?
1.5 miles.
Oh, okay. Good cardio, like right?
17-minute walk there and back. So I got rid of my car a year ago when I moved to Miami to challenge myself.
Okay.
I wanted to challenge myself. And I said, you know what? Like, I moved to Miami sight unseen. I'd been here once before. I went to Fort Lauderdale a couple years prior. And I was like, okay, I like Florida. Florida seems like a nice state. Like, there's not a bunch of homeless people running around and people aren't breaking into houses all the time. And like, I think this is good for me. Like, this feels great. So I packed up my apartment in California and I moved to Florida sight unseen. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to have a car. My mom's like, what? I'm like, I'm going to sell my car. So I tried to Turo my car in California with a company. That was a utter failure. But because of inflation, it ended up working out because I sold my car for like $4,000 more. So the loss maxed out the profit. So it was a wash. And I came to Florida and I've been here for a year without a car because I don't sell real estate. I don't need to be super mobile, and I use Ubers and I rent cars. So now like I'll rent if I need a weekend car, I'll rent like an Audi or a Porsche or something super cool. And I'm still spending less with Ubers all around town than I would if I had a car, which was like a 2015 BMW. It was a nice 4 Series, but it was like 6 years old, 7 years old now, right? So it was like a cool car in 2016. I don't know, whatever. It was an older car. So
Yeah.
even though it was super fun and sick, the only thing that I'm like, oh man, if I had a car, it'd be easier to take my bikes to the place. But then I found a guy that will come and pick up my bikes, service them, and drop them off. And he doesn't charge me any extra to service my bikes. And I ride with him. So it's cool that I get to support my buddy. And he will drive 30 minutes to pick up my bikes and drop them off at me. So I'm like, wow, this is fucking awesome. Like, I don't have to take my bike to the shop anymore. He'll pick it up. He's super intense. He's super like, he loves bikes. So he like takes the whole thing apart, cleans it. It comes back better than from the factory. And I don't have to pay anything extra. I just pay him the normal, what I'd pay a fee of the guy that I would have to take the bike to. So I'm like, you start to figure out different ways of how to become creative in life.
I was about to say that, Vikram. Every time you've told me you had a problem or a challenge, you figured out a solution just by thinking things through. Right?
There's no problems. There's just challenges.
Just challenges. Jump online. There's YouTube videos. There's, use your network, talk to your friends. Everything seems to be working out though for you.
I mean, give or take. I mean, things are never as fast as I want them to be, but once you get into a certain mode, you pick up momentum. But like, to go back, how do you find a mentor? Hire some people, and people like, oh, that person didn't work for me. I'm like, did that person not work for you, or did you not do the work? Like, let's get really raw right now. Like, can we be really real and vulnerable? Did they not work, or did you not do the work they were telling you? Because they might not have been able to get through the mindset shit because they didn't have the skills, but what they were telling you was fun. Pick up the phone, make more calls. Okay, that's there's nothing wrong with that. Hey, let's role play your script. There's nothing wrong with that. Hey, let's work on your database. They're not bad coaches. They might not have the skills to break through your mindset because you're having an emotional issue that's now taking on the personal. So what a lot of coaches don't understand is that the internal game, which they understand, but they don't know how to get through it because they haven't done it themselves. The internal game is more important than the external game. The internal reasons why somebody isn't taking action is way more important. So, they always say, find your why. That's great. But PJ, let's be honest. That's not super easy to do if you're in a state of depression.
Yeah.
So if we can have a conversation about why aren't you taking action, right? Like with Tony Robbins, on his events, one of the things that I watched him do was 300 or 400 interventions, maybe a couple more, maybe a couple less, but let's call it a couple of hundred interventions. If Tony Robbins goes and says, hey, you're broken and your mindset's off, that ain't going to work because that person's going to shut down. So we have to go through the back door, right? We have to go through the back door to get into the front door, because if we just go in and rock them, they're not going to listen. So we have to ask certain questions. People say, what kind of questions do you ask? I'm like, I listen to what they say and then I formulate a question. And it's not the questions, it's the listening. It's listening to the little things that they say that they didn't need to say, or the tonality, or the like the deep breath. Like right now I'm playing with the new setup. So I'm looking at the camera trying to be more direct, but you're to the left in a small screen. So I'm trying to look directly at you, because I'm like, I need to see PJ's reaction to what I'm saying to see if that resonates with him. And I don't want to look left and right, because if your viewers are on YouTube, I want them to think that I'm talking to them by looking directly into the lens.
Yeah.
It's challenging.
Yeah, no, it absolutely makes sense. I think there's so many coaches out there though, too, right now that are coaching to be coaches. Right. So whereas if I'm, let's say, you have bicycles in the background, I'm a bicycle salesperson. I can teach people how to sell bicycles. If I'm not, let's say, I work at a laundromat, it's going to be really hard for me to coach people on how to sell bicycles. Right.
Yes.
So I think you see that a lot though nowadays. There's coaches that show up to be coaches. Right. And they don't necessarily have those skills that they've developed over time and over years to be able to actually convey to a student.
It's why I coach real estate agents and not anything else. As much as I love the health and wellness world, as much as I love mindset, I can do everything. What I realized was about 7 months ago when I went really hard on saying, okay, actually my business partner said, he said, it's probably about 90 days ago when you started to say that you're a real estate coach. Cause I never wanted to be lumped in as one thing. And so I was always like mindset, oh, double your business income. Oh, do this, do that. Right. Like even my backdrop right now that I have to change on like our LinkedIn or not our, but some of our LinkedIn, our business profiles on Facebook say double your revenue. Cause I was trying to go for the whole market. And it took me a long time to realize that I was just going to focus on real estate agents because I can do the mindset. I can do the spirituality. I can do the health. I can do the business that I love because it's a holistic approach.
Yeah.
But I can do it in a field where I spent 9 years and we made millions of dollars and we took people that were living like, you know, 20, 30, $40,000 a year. And we created people that had $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 incomes over the course of a couple of years by implementing certain systems and strategies and disciplines and then teaching the skills necessary so that they could do it. And because I've been through it, I'm not speaking as a guru with theory. I'm speaking as somebody who is in the trenches suffering alongside of you guys. So I know what it's like to be in your shoes. I know what it's like to live. Most of my clients have never been so broke and broke in going through a divorce that they asked a client to live in their house doing a short sale. Yeah, I did that. You know, like I lived in a client's house for 40, 65 days because I didn't have enough money because me and my ex just finished remodeling our house and I didn't have a lot of cash, even though I sold expensive real estate, like $600,000, $500,000 homes. So I was making money, but it all went to the house. And then we got separated and I was like, I'm going to pay off your car. I'm going to do this. So I was like, how am I going to pay for this? So I lived in the back of a client's, like I lived in a client's house, no washer dryer, scrub my underwear and clothes in the shower, dry them, dry them, right? Like in the bathtub over the bathroom thing. My mom's like, you could just take them to the laundromat. I'm like, Mom, I've been doing this for 4 weeks now. You tell me now, like now you tell me like what? She's like, yeah. I was like, no, it's fine. I'm like, it's cool. I already got the soap. It's fine. I'll just do it. Right. Like no pots and pans. Like I was like, Mom, I know I sold like Cutco knives and we sold pots and pans, but like, I actually don't know where to buy pots and pans. She's like, how much money? She's like, how much money do you have right now? And I'm like, I don't know, $7. She's like, go to Ross. I'm like, Ross? She's like, go to Ross. I was like, okay. She's like, do they have a barbecue there? I'm like, yeah, but I can't barbecue eggs in the morning, Mom. She's like, go to Ross. About a $57, 77, 78, 80, $75, $80 set of pots and pans. Right. And then from there, I went to a friend's house random guy that I met at a bar one night that had a 2-bedroom, 2-bath condo in downtown Bellevue. I was like, yo, Brad, I know you don't know me. This is going to sound weird. And I know the last time I came over, like you were partying with some crazy women in your house and my ex walked in and she's like, we're not hanging out here. And I was like, are you sure you don't want to? Cause those girls are hot.
I kind of want to hang out at that house.
They're crazy. They're hot. Like, I was like, do you have an extra bedroom I can live in? And he's like, what? Who the fuck are you? And I'm like, I remember I met you with Jerry at the bar and you were super drunk. And yeah, like I got a trash bag full of clothes. Can I come over and stay for a couple weeks? So I closed the short sale and then he bought a condo and I just saved all that money. And then I moved from there to like a really swanky building in Bellevue. But like, I've been through the trenches, man. Like, I don't hope you go through the trenches, but when people are like, yo, I don't have any money. I was like, dude, I still paid my coach every month. I still paid 2 G's a month to my coach every month. And this was 10 years ago. And when people are like, I don't have any money, I'm like, then you need to get the fuck out of this business and get a job. If you don't have a credit card, if you don't have something, like you don't deserve to have the success because you're lazy and you thought it was going to be easy. And I get you because that's not your fault that you thought it was going to be easy, but now you know how hard it is. You don't have the resources and you're not willing to be resourceful and you're waking up at 10. You're getting on a call with me at 10 o'clock and you haven't taken a shower. And you wonder why you don't have any money. It's not that the training isn't out there. Like I've put the training out there. So many coaches have put the training out there. The perfect day. What do you do in the morning? How do you schedule your time? The Miracle Morning by Hal Elrod. How do you do this? What do you do when you get up in the morning? Well, I check my email and I send some stuff out to clients. You ain't got no clients. You closed 3 houses this year. It's August. It's month 8. You ain't got shit to do. You've closed 8 houses this year. What do you do with freaking 60 hours a week that you're awake? Tell me, because I've been in the same boat. Like I didn't have a bunch of clients coming in, and I was my coach was like, dude, you need to get on the phone, Vikram. I'm like, what? He's like, you need a prospect. I'm like, I don't want to. It's like, I didn't say did I ask you what do you want to do today? I was like, no. It's like, I told you what you need to do. So you need to get on the phone. You need to book appointments. Fuck your team. Let everything break on the back end, but at least get some revenue in so that you can hire different people, and you need to get money. He's like, even if the people stay for 3 months, it's 3 months. That's $3,000, 10 people. That's 30K. He's like, would 30K make a difference right now in your life? And I'm like, well, considering that my last business didn't put any money in my pocket for 22 months and I paid for everything on a credit card and like I had some real estate things come through here and there. I'm like, yeah, that would be great. He's like, then go do it. I was like, but I don't want to get on the phone. He's like, do you want me to come over there and beat your ass? I'm like, no, not really. He's like, then get the fuck on the phone. He's like, start doing webinars weekly, get on the phone, let everything in the back break. He's like, forget it. He's like, Gary Vee said the greatest thing. He said, too many people spend too much time on systems and processes because they know that their shit's broken. He's like, but you know what happens when you start making sales? Your systems and processes figure themselves out.
Yeah.
Because you can actually see in real life how they're working.
Yeah.
Because when they're theory, you just are like, oh, okay, well, that looks good. But then when you start doing it, you're like, oh shit, PJ, that's broken. So
yeah, I think too many people worry about like the perfect website, like I have to have the best website. I have to have the best picture. My profile pic has to be great, right? Like, you work with realtors. I get these cards all the time in every networking group. You get 40 or 50 of them and they all roughly look the same. It's a guy in a suit. He's smiling. He's got great hair. But they built all that first. And they haven't sold anything yet, right? There's no offense in the game. There's zero offense.
Yeah.
It's all defensive. They're all just preparing for what might happen if they do get it.
People like, yo, can you send me more information on your program? I'm like, no. Like, why? I'm like, I don't have it. I'm like, I'm working. Yeah. I don't have information on my programs. For 8 years, I sold $200 million worth of real estate. People like, your website has typos on it. I'm like, how many homes I sold?
Yeah, I don't care.
I'm like, I'm too busy. Like, well, can't you have somebody else on your team do it? I'm like, do you want your house sold and look pretty and amazing and be perfectly staged and the manicure, like your lawn's manicured, like you're at the White House? Or do you want me to have a perfect website that nobody goes to? Yeah. Like, well, I'd rather have my house staged. I was like, great, sign the contract. Let's go.
Yeah. Do you want me to sell your house or do you want me to have a nice website?
Yeah. I was like, dude, like people like, your website's kind of broken. I'm like, yeah, I know. Like, why don't you fix it? I'm like, because it doesn't fucking matter. You're not hiring me for my website. You're hiring me for the skills that I'm going to teach you on how to communicate with people.
Absolutely. Vikram, man, I know you got a hard stop today.
Oh shit.
If you want a real coach who's not going to bullshit you, he's going to do exactly what you need to do. There is no question. This dude is full of energy and he's going to get to the point. He's going to tell you exactly what you need to do to be successful. No question about it. Like, dude, I've already feeding off your energy already. So, Vikram, how can people get hold of you? How can people get, if they are a veteran agent, and they're like, okay, I need this guy.
You don't got to be a veteran. You just can't be brand new. Like you got to know, you got to have some skin in the game because, I'm just not going to teach you about contracts and stuff like that. That's not my jam. But go to Coach Vikram Deol, CoachVikramDeol. I think I'm the only one that pops up on Instagram, and just reach out to me. And if you're a new agent, by all means, like I do weekly classes, not weekly, but I do a couple of times a month. Me and my business partner are rolling out a podcast. I think it's called the Real Estate Agent Podcast, the RE Agent Podcast, I think, or the RE. I don't even know the name of it because like, I'm like, let's just get it done, bro. You figure out the name of it. He's like, you are an interesting character. But you got to go to Instagram and find me. And then, we're rolling out a podcast with, we're going to do a podcast a day. It's called the RE Agent Podcast. I had to look it up. The RE Agent Podcast. Go check us out there. We should be launching about September 15th. And we're interviewing some of the best agents on how they basically like your thing, but just all real estate. And We're going to be launching a podcast a day once we start. So it's going to be pretty freaking gnarly. So there's going to be a lot of content. But if you're a new agent, like come to my classes, man. Like, get on my mailing list. Like, there's so much content that I give out. And if you're a veteran agent and you want to get some help to get more structure and, grow your business and increase your revenue, just send me a message on Instagram and we'll send you a little survey and see if we're a good fit. And if we are, we'll jump on a call.
That's awesome. It's like real estate agents on steroids.
I
That's
mean,
what it strikes me as. You're like running 1,000 miles an hour. Let's go. Let's go. There's no screwing around, no talking about our feelings here. All right, Vikram,
no,
big question I ask at the end of every podcast. We're LandLife. Not LandLife, that's not my hat. We're LandLife. We buy and sell land, buy and sell dirt all over the country. If you could buy
nice.
land anywhere in the world, where would it be and why?
If I could buy dirt anywhere in the world, I'd buy dirt in Miami.
It'd be big money dirt.
Yeah, I'd buy dirt in Miami because I like the politics here. I like the government's very supportive of business here. And prices are through the roof here. And Miami's still growing, like Florida's still growing like crazy. And so if you can afford to buy land in the Miami area, I would buy, or just Florida in general. Like, it's pretty insane. Like, the fastest growing cities are in the state of Florida right now.
Yeah.
So I would buy in Florida if you could.
Absolutely. That's awesome. Vikram, thank you so much, man. I really appreciate it. I think I learned a ton too. So
I think I talked a lot.
hey, know what you're good at, right, man? Know what you're good at. You're a good talker, man. You're an excellent talker. So I really appreciate it too. I didn't have to do anything. I just said, hey, go ahead, Vikram, tell us about yourself. And now we're at the end.
I appreciate it, man. I appreciate it. I'm very grateful to be on your show, and I'm glad that our schedules finally synced up and we were able to make it. Oh, what's funny is the reason I'll share something personal with you guys about you is the reason why we actually had to cancel the first one is because you had a coaching conflict.
Oh, yeah, probably.
So you had a coaching conflict. So it's funny, like we're talking about mentorship and coaching, but you had a conflict which we had to cancel for. And I was like, oh, like when I saw that in the description, hey, dude, I'm so sorry I had a coaching conflict. I'm like, this dude gets it. Like, no wonder he's successful.
Yeah, thanks, man. Yeah, got to help people out too. And you know what? They ask me for help. They pay me for help, and I like helping them. Honestly, I do it for free. So
yeah,
I really do enjoy it.
Dude, I appreciate it, man. You're awesome.
All right, Vikram, man.
Have a good day, bro.
Thank you so much, guys. Till next time on LandLife.